Wonderful Thursday night, December 12th, 2019. Only 4 games. I'm Dave Lochran, and you know him by the name Awesemo. Alex Baker, number 1 ranked DFS player in the universe. What's going on, brother?
Not much, man. Excited for the slate. As we were talking about a little bit earlier, it almost made me quit DFS because it's so hard to analyze. I'm like, why did I start this website? This sucks.
He's ripping on me because I mentioned it earlier today when I was writing the deep dive. Like I legitimately considered not finishing the article. Now I would never do that, right? I'm a consummate professional, Alex. But this slate, and we don't like to come into shows saying, "Hey, what a bad." Are you in a different room again? Where are you, Puerto Rico?
I wish, man. Apparently you can't play DFS in Puerto Rico. So
that's right.
Miami.
That's right. Where are you at? Miami?
Yeah.
Adam's in Puerto Rico, right? That's right. All right.
Probably partying it up right now.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, this slate for a 4-gamer. I know it's not great to start off a show by saying like a slate sucks, but it doesn't really matter because we're going to play it anyway. Like it really doesn't matter. But
yeah, I mean the prizes are just as big. And
exactly.
The thing I don't
go ahead.
The thing about this slate that's kind of frustrating is that there's a lot of news that is looming that will drastically change our lineups. So it's like I was trying to build some lineups earlier on the game plan show. And I couldn't even get through a lineup because it was like so many contingencies of what's going to happen to these different dudes.
Right. At every position, like if this happens, this guy is great. And it doesn't really afford you the luxury of being able to break things down with any accuracy whatsoever. I do want to ask you about the injuries that we're waiting on. But before we do, give a shout out to our sponsor, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They're rocking that $30K baller today, $5K to first. $175,000 NFL baller this Sunday as well. Get in there. If you've already signed up, well, you're doing it right. If not, use awesemo.com to get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points, those YSRPs. Get up to $30 upon depositing, and it's very simple. Here's how you do it. If you just go to awesemo.com, click on, you'll see the NBA drop-down tab, click articles, okay? Or you can do NFL. Go to NFL articles with the showdown article, or NBA, since this is the NBA show, and you'll see one of the first articles on the homepage is free. It's the Cash Building Blocks article by EMAC. It's got Luka Doncic on there with a big grin on his face. Bad image, EMAC. I know you're watching. He doesn't even have a jersey on. You can do better than that. You can do better than that thumbnail. But click on that, scroll to the bottom, the Yahoo link's right there. When you sign up, use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, to get your $30 in YSRPs upon depositing. Become a baller today. And truly, the competition level is much easier on Yahoo than it is on DraftKings and FanDuel. We have one guy. You see this one guy that tweets us like every other day, winning that. It's $500 to first place. I know you know who I'm talking about, Alex. Mm-hmm. Every other day, he's tweeting us that he won that contest.
Yeah, it's great because he's really taking the advice on the site that I've written about bankroll management and contest selection and everything, because he's not entering like the biggest tournaments. He's just kind of picking off the easiest, lowest stakes ones and really building up his bankroll. That's a much more sustainable way to play DFS and then just kind of lay it all out on the line every night.
Yeah, and he keeps winning. Like he just keeps winning. So if you want to be like that guy, can't guarantee it, but he's having a great time. And it's with the information Alex mentioned that he's learned from awesemo.com. And of course, you guys still got to be a good player and do it right. You have to apply everything that's given to you and be able to use it. But head over to Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports through our link, use the sign up code AWESEMO, get up to $30 in YSRPs upon depositing. They're as good as cash to be used on the site to win and play real money. All right. So the breaking news before we go game by game, what is it that you're watching right now that is really big for this slate?
I mean, Andre Drummond has been wearing sunglasses for the past 2 days, and he's questionable because of this eye infection. That's extremely significant because
you need your eyes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as worried about that because he can't shoot in the first place. I mean, going from like 60% free throw to 40%, that's not that much of a change.
No.
but I'm just worried about him being out there in the first place. And I mean, if he was wearing some sweet shades to this game, maybe some goggles that are shades, so like that'd be kind of cool, right?
That'd be amazing if he had blacked out rec specs for this game. I would feel great about that. You'd be obligated to play him just because he looks ridiculous. But that's big. And by the way, there's a lot of injuries. There's a lot of bones and muscles and tendons on the body, but Jamal Murray's got a trunk contusion. That's what they're calling it, a trunk contusion. He got steamrolled by Ben Simmons the other day. Clean play. It was just a collision, but he got steamrolled right into his trunk. And now he's questionable to play. Murray said that he was going to play, but player speak doesn't always tell you the whole story. Paul Millsap is also questionable with a foot injury. DeLon Wright is out. Gordon Hayward's expected to play, and Al Horford's questionable. Do you have a read on any of these guys, whether it be Millsap, Murray, or Horford?
Well, I think that of the three, Murray is probably the most likely to play because someone like sent the link to the Instagram post he made where he's like, I'm going to be back tomorrow. Of course, things change between one day and the next, but it is a little bit unusual for athletes to come out that strongly. And that to me suggests that maybe it's just kind of he got banged up. So I'm pretty comfortable rolling with him. So I'm not as high on Monty Morris on FanDuel or something where you can't late swap off him. Millsap, I think that's a big question mark, probably a 50-50. And if he's out, Jeremy Grant is going to be a lock play, basically. That's really the only guy that I'm projecting to be significantly affected because they have Torrey Craig or Juan Hernan Gomez to kind of fill out the rest of the minutes.
All right. Let's get into it, man. We've got 4 games to talk about. Let me fix this a little bit. I don't know. I feel like Josh uncropped me from before. Probably not. I probably moved my camera. 4 games to talk about. And as we always mention, we're happy to have all you guys and girls with us for today's show. Not a lot of games, but like you said, Alex, same money on the line. Boston and Philadelphia, 8 p.m. start. That's tip-off. Then an 8:30, then a 9, then a 10:30, which is convenient in the sense of being able to late swap, but inconvenient in the sense of we're waiting on news that's coming from a 10:30 game, and it's going to be your only game that you can swap onto. They're very spread out, which is going to make it tough if these guys are game time decisions. So I'm hoping we get some news soon. But we'll kick it off with Philly and Boston. This should be a really good game to watch. I don't know how great it's going to be from a fantasy standpoint, but because there are only 4 games and the highest total on this slate is 219, we've got to touch on everything in depth. 211.5 total. Sixers 1.5 point road favorites. They got a 106.5 implied, 105 for the Celtics. So what we do know already, Alex, from an injury standpoint, is we will be without Marcus Smart and we will be without Robert Williams. I had the conversation with Adam yesterday, mentioning that Daniel Tice could play 26 to 28 minutes. He ended up playing 27, so we were right there. Interestingly, though, Enes Kanter played 14, and it was actually Grant Williams who got some of the backup 5 minutes against a big front court like this in Philly, where you have either Horford or Embiid at the 5 at all times, sometimes Horford at the 4. I think Tice could play another 27, 28 minutes tonight, which to me is an interesting spot given his low ownership. What are your thoughts on Boston?
Yeah, I think that the Marcus Smart news is kind of interesting. Another eye injury I'll point out. So if you're thinking Andre Drummond is going to play because of eye not being that big a deal, then Marcus Smart's proof that maybe that's not true.
Yep.
When it comes to Tice, I think I'm interested. He is a little bit small on the center side where he's 6'8" against Embiid. That is going to be a big disadvantage. And one thing about Tice that concerns me is that he averages 5.2 personal fouls per 36. So there is a significant chance of foul trouble here. And I think that mitigates some interest I have, as well as the height thing. And the other reason I'm not incredibly keen on it is because the backup center presumably will be Al Horford if he plays. Al Horford is more of a power forward kind of guy, so I think they will bring in Grant Williams a significant amount during this game. So I think it will be a 3-man rotation at center for Boston.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not the foul trouble to me is concerning. That's something, but that's anyone that's remotely foul prone against Embiid, it just gets pretty bad. But because his ownership projection is so low right now on a 4-game slate, I'm personally willing to take that risk. And one of the other reasons is you're right. He is not a big center, but Brad Stevens has seemingly been very much unwilling to run out Enes Kanter. I'd be a lot more concerned if Kanter was a good defender, but he's a brutal defender and he'll get the piss beat out of him by Joel Embiid. So I don't know if they have any better options would be my thing. Like, yeah, Kanter's a bigger center, but he's also going to get himself into some trouble if Embiid is out there. What are your thoughts on the rest of Boston, though? Looking at Jaylen Brown on FanDuel at a weak small forward position. Gordon Hayward was injured last game, minor injury with that nose injury. He should return. But first, let's touch on Brad Wanamaker, who at the time is projected for pretty significant ownership across the board because of that discounted price point.
I think that Brad Wanamaker kind of is significant on this slate because there isn't much value thus far because there haven't been a lot of guys ruled out. Marcus Smart being one of the few. Brad Wanamaker is someone who's averaged 21 minutes over the last 15 games. A lot of that was because of injuries to some of these guys like Hayward. So I think that that's what I'm expecting today is another 21 minutes on average. That could be 26 or it could be 15. It's pretty variant, and the price is pretty good. Pretty much the man across the industry. So I think that he makes sense to take some shots on, but he's not a guy you can feel comfortable with by any means.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable with him at all. I have tepid interest because right now there is no value, like you pointed out, but that's pretty much the only reason. Normally you'd have no interest in Brad Wanamaker. What are we doing with these mid-range guys, the Haywards, the Tatums, and the Browns for today's game against the Sixers?
I think it's somewhat site specific. On DraftKings, I have most of these guys rated about average plays, 5 points per dollar. But on FanDuel, Jaylen Brown and Daniel Tice are cheaper, as well as Walker, so they make decent plays on FanDuel. On DraftKings, Kemba Walker's price has gone up, and given that he had that huge game yesterday, that no one was on him, surprisingly, just kind of broke the slate for guys who had him. I think that will drive his ownership up a little bit, and I don't think he's a good play overall in general at the price.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. He's had ridiculous games against the 76ers. Last year, he just tortured them, but I don't put much stock in that. I really can't. I think his price is fine. $7,700 on Walker's okay. But you have to consider that last season, this was a guy that was playing alongside guys like Marvin Williams and Nick Batum and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. Now you have Tatum, who's going to soak up considerable usage. Hayward is back. Jaylen Brown. It's just a much more well-rounded team. So it limits that upside on a nightly basis, which I don't love. I don't have an issue with Walker because of his price. $7,700 on DraftKings, I think, is pretty fair. $77 on FanDuel is even more fair, but I wouldn't be considering him a priority option either. $34 on Yahoo, also reasonable. Now, on the opposite side of this game with Philly, I'm assuming Josh Richardson isn't as limited as he was. Not sure how much it matters, but shooting guard's terrible on FanDuel. He only played 19 minutes and was wildly outplayed by Matisse Thybulle. I mean, Matisse Thybulle is beginning to he's beginning to find his game, it appears. Now, never a guy that's going to give you peripherals. I don't imagine he'll continue to shoot 70% from three-point range, but great defense and decent enough three-point shooting is going to keep this guy on the floor. So I wouldn't be surprised if Richardson starts playing at even 28 minutes per game if it means Thibault gets more run. Let's start with Joel Embiid, though. Boston Celtics, a good defensive team, but they do allow the 5th most points per possession in the post, the 2nd most post points this season. Are you getting to Joel Embiid today on any site?
Well, I think that he's going to be one of the highest projected players, which makes him worth taking some shots on. The price tag isn't incredible, but one encouraging factor is he's been averaging about 31.5 minutes over the past 15. Came out at the start of the season, averaging less than that. So I'm expecting him to be a little bit better than he looked at the start of the season. And as we mentioned, the matchup is pretty nice versus a guy that's pretty short. I think that's a huge factor, but from a subjective standpoint, you gotta like that. I mean, do you think that he'll have any trouble just kind of scoring over Tice?
I don't. No, I think. Well, here's the thing. I think I have a lot of respect for Boston as defensively as a unit. They're gonna scheme ways to make life tough for Joel Embiid, right? Like if you watch the one way to really get to Joel Embiid is if he's in the post, you have him D'd up 1-on-1, and then the moment you see him start to make a move, you bring somebody in that's already hovering around the paint to strip that ball from him, right? The moment he puts the moment Embiid puts the ball on the ground, a hand is coming in from somewhere to try and grab it. Now, when he gets the shot off, he's deadly. But if they make it so he can't get the shot off in the post, that's what's going to be the death of him. Now, I think there's still plenty of upside in Embiid today, but I don't love him in this spot. I mean, it's still a top 5 defense, and it's a Boston team that Brad Stevens and them have schemed to take him out of it before. Different center rotation today than it was last year, but it's still a tough matchup, Alex.
Absolutely. And I mean, we see Philly only projected for 106 points. That's extremely low for a team of their talent level. And Boston, of course, projected to do pretty poorly as well. So I think that these guys aren't incredible bargains, and they're not going to really stand out as far as pace. These teams are about middle of the road. So there really isn't much reason to go to these guys. But one guy I am interested in is Ben Simmons, who, for one reason or another, his price has just come down a little bit. He'd been on a hot run a few weeks back, but now he's cooled off, and he might be someone I get to tonight.
Okay. Ben Simmons, I just throw this out there because the price point is very low. Who did you just mention?
Simmons.
So you were talking about Simmons. Okay. So I was reading that in Super Chat, Christian Tixon just hit us with $99.99.
Oh,
what a guy, man.
Man, that's awesome, man. Thank you. Chris Tixon is a guy I've been seeing a lot on Twitter. I take it he had some big wins, so congrats to Chris.
Yeah, you want to hear what he had to say?
Yeah.
He said, thanks for the great info and the $11.3 thousand takedown, taking down 2 tourneys last night. Now my girlfriend can stop bitching at me watching these shows before lock. Bought myself 2 hours of peace and quiet.
Well, let me tell Chris something. That's just false. No matter how much money you win, there's never gonna be all that peace and quiet you want.
Nope. And wait till you start losing.
Oh man,
it's a lot worse. But we really appreciate you, man, and congratulations. That's great. The big thing I have on Simmons, right, is again Boston and Toronto, 2 teams do a phenomenal job of scheming to make sure the Embiid and Simmons turn over the ball. I watch a lot of Sixers; it's an issue. However, the one thing I like, Alex, is he's been playing 37, 38, 39 minutes in competitive games. So if you're getting 38, 39 minutes from Simmons in close games, as a 1.2 fantasy point per minute guy, you could do a lot worse than that on a 4-game slate.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a competitive game a lot of the time. The spread is only 1.5. I actually, at one point, did some research, and I, based on the spread, figured out like the blowout percentages, and based on the spread, there's about a 56% chance of this being a game that's competitive to the very end. Only an 8% chance of a blowout. So I think that if you want to give these guys an extra minute or 2 over their average for the season, you wouldn't be crazy.
That is awesome. You have a blowout model?
Yeah, it's something I actually want to post on the site pretty soon. I haven't gotten to it yet, but
That's
keep an eye out
exciting.
for it.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool. How would you
thanks, man.
factor it into your lineups?
So that's the tricky part is usually in these close games, it's not a great matchup. So adding the extra minute does make guys look quite a bit better. Um, but the blowout risk isn't quite as significant as people expect because even if the spread is 15 or 16, it's only about 1 in 3 chance that it's a blowout. So
Exactly. Well, we just saw it like Houston and Cleveland the other day. Everyone would think that game was going to blow out, right? Finished like 117 to 110, was competitive throughout. Miami, Atlanta, you would have expected that to be close. You would have thought, no matter how good Milwaukee's playing, that the Clippers would have kept things close. That was a blowout. So, I mean, it's really tough to predict them, but it is cool to see the percentages on there. Yeah, I'd love to take a look at that. That's awesome, man.
thanks, man.
Okay. Anything else from this game on either side that we haven't touched on?
If Al Horford is out, um, it's kind of disappointing because it'd be a revenge game. But so I'm kind of curious whether Mike Scott gets to start here. But I think based on the matchup, it'd probably be Korkmaz. He might be a play on FanDuel, but not someone I get super excited about.
Yeah, Harris moving to the 4. Definitely possible. Last game, Mike Scott did start, which threw me off a little bit. I had to make some quick adjustments there. If I will say, if Mike Scott does start, I'll have plenty of interest in him at near minimum salary. Probably give him around 24, 25 minutes. I would be very happy with that. Actually, I might give him more than that. Korkmaz has been falling out of favor. So, yeah, we'll keep an eye. We'll stay tuned. That could be big news there. Let's talk about San Antonio and Cleveland. The Spurs, big favorites here, 11.5-point favorites at home, and they're not even a good basketball team. 218.5 total, 115 implied for San Antonio, 103.5 for the Cleveland Cavaliers. This game's kind of a mess, man. Like it's kind of ugly. I really don't know what to make of much of it. You know, you give Aldridge and DeRozan their minutes, and then you guess what type of minutes Derek White and Bryn Forbes and Lonnie Walker, now who's in the rotation, are going to see. Rudy Gay, is he going to play 21 or 25? It's we'll get to Cleveland in a second because that's even worse. But even with San Antonio, outside of the top 2 guys, it really is dicey.
So I have kind of a read on this. This is someone I haven't seen this guy being mentioned at all, but Jacob Poeltl. I feel like he's going to get the start today because Cleveland, they run out 2 bigs with Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson. It seems unlikely they'll put Rudy Gay and Aldridge in the starting lineup versus those guys. So I'm kind of expecting Poeltl to get the start, and he's like really sneaky on FanDuel because they probably won't announce the starting lineup before lock. So that's the guy I'm kind of interested in. Of course, not a great basketball player, but I think the matchup for the Cleveland or for the Spurs is pretty good versus Cleveland. So I'm pretty interested in all these guys. What do you think about these guys?
My thing is, like, when we talk about blowouts here, I'm trying to be careful not to give like Aldridge and DeRozan like 34 minutes, because if I do that, I'm just going to get an egregious amount of them. And I have no problem getting there, but the San Antonio Spurs have already been, just okay. Hold on a second. I was reading the. I wasn't gonna say anything.
Yeah.
Dadler's saying it's Jake Puddle. I thought you were gonna say it's actually Jakob Poeltl, but everyone knew what you were talking about. So whatever. I think, is that Josh? Did Josh come up with that nickname or someone else? Jake Puddle.
It's from Game of Zones.
Oh, dude, is that the new season of Game of Zones?
No, it's from the DeMar DeRozan trade episode.
Okay. I love that show. That is a fantastic show. I haven't seen that one though. Jake Puddle. Okay.
I'm embarrassed that I don't know what this is. I'm still stuck on the San Antonio Crime Fighting Force show.
Have you never seen Game of Zones?
No, man. What is Game of Zones?
Just YouTube it. It's really, it's enjoyable. They're short, like 5-10 minute videos of just, I don't want to give it away, but it's great. Anyway, I have no problem with Puddle. You got to go value somewhere, but personally, I think he gets back to like I think he plays around 18 minutes. On DraftKings, where he's 51, I'm going to go Daniel Tice at $4,000 over him all day. The rest of the supporting cast, do they do anything for you? Bryn Forbes, Derek White, and how much would you say you like DeRozan and Aldridge? Because it's kind of what I was alluding to a moment ago. I like them, but I don't want to, like, you know how you said add a minute and everything, they can be a whole lot more enticing, or not enticing, but you'll get a lot more of them. I'm trying to avoid doing that to where I'm just getting so much of each.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I'm not going to overthink this one. It's a good matchup. These guys have been performing at a higher level since DeJounte Murray has been moved to the bench. That's a guy I think is worth talking about because there's been some buzz in the basketball community that DeJounte Murray is off this minutes limit. I'm kind of thinking it doesn't matter because Derek White has been outplaying him from everything I can tell recently. So I have it as about a 50-50 split. But what's your take on DeJounte?
Oh man, I don't even know if I have one, honestly. In the sense of his minutes are so volatile that on a slate like this, I'd have no problem getting there. He's clearly come back down to earth, and I can't. So what? He played 32 minutes last game, right? And I believe he played the 5 minutes overtime period.
Yeah, I mean that throws it all out of whack because that's basically 27 minutes.
Exactly. I want to make sure that he played the whole overtime period, but I'm almost certain that he did. And if that's the case, that changes a lot. So DeJounte Murray played all of overtime. Yeah. So now you're talking 27. At 20, I think I have him at 25 minutes. But even that, I don't feel great about, Alex. His minutes have been 23, 21, 23, 20, 22, 18. So even at 25, I have a little bit of hesitation.
I mean, I feel like based on everything you're telling me, you should play Derek White. Because
yeah. Well, so here's the thing, though. Popovich mentioned, I think it was like 3 or 4 days ago, that he's going to be playing more minutes after. So it says that that he's going to be playing more minutes now. So that's why I have him at 25, right? But I don't think I can, and I'll ask where you have him. I don't think I can put him at like 29 or 30 or anything close to that yet. 25, 26 seems about right in my opinion, maybe 27.
I think that that's definitely possible that he's kind of usurped Derek White as the number one point guard. But one thing I really look at as a determiner of how good a player is playing is their minutes, right? So DeJounte Murray, he's only averaged 23 minutes over the last 5 games, including that blowout. So I think that that's not very encouraging.
No.
And given how popular he's going to be, I like Derek White. This is someone you don't want to play in the same lineup as Murray because they're never on the court together, at least to this point in the season. And it's the classic contrarian play where they're anti-correlated.
I agree. And you actually could find an article from back in October 30th saying Spurs Greg Popovich looking to increase Murray's minutes. So like that's all the way for now. We're 2 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago or 3 days ago, you've got DeJounte Murray ready to be unleashed. So I don't know, man. How many minutes are you giving Murray?
I'm pretty conservative here. I'm giving him 24.
Okay.
I'm giving him and White about 50-50 split. White, of course, he has a little bit of an edge in minutes starting. So DeJounte Murray will have to outplay him to get to 24.
Okay. Now Cleveland, oh man, this is rough because you've got John Beilein. How do you pronounce that, by the way? Beilein. I think I asked Josh this before. He always has to help me. I don't remember.
Well, being from Ann Arbor, I've seen enough Michigan basketball games. John Beilein.
Oh, it is. Okay. Thank you. I didn't hear you say it earlier. Beeline. There you go. That makes sense. Like beelining it for something. I don't know anything about the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, full disclosure. But, so
What do you mean, man? This is the coach of the year here.
It seems as though he's shaking things up a little bit. I could be wrong, but Kevin Porter Jr.'s playing more minutes. He capped that recent stretch of decent games off of 29 minutes and a season best or career best 39 DraftKings points last time. Outplayed pretty well. Cedi Osman played only 18 or 19 minutes there, and it wasn't because of a blowout, and it wasn't because of injury. So Kevin Porter, does he get a lot of extra minutes? Does Jordan Clarkson, are they trying to showcase him for a trade? I don't know, but he's gone and played 26 and 29 minutes now in back-to-back games. What are you thinking on the Cleveland Cavaliers today? There's a lot of moving parts with this team.
Well, I think the fact that it is a back-to-back is significant because that has to make you less enthusiastic about Kevin Love, who, if you asked me if he was going to even play today, like I wouldn't have been very confident that he would. A lot of the price tags on these guys are pretty high, like Sexton. Osman's is pretty low, but he doesn't really produce anything. Same with Garland. So you are kind of looking at maybe Kevin Porter and Clarkson, who at least put up decent fantasy points when they're on the court. The big question is, how much are they going to be on the court? And usually it's not that much.
Okay. Yeah, that's what's kind of tough. I don't really know where to go here. Clarkson does have a 26% usage rate. So I don't have an issue. If he gets on a very short slate, 28 minutes against the, bottom 12 defense in San Antonio, I could see him having a decent game, but it's a total crapshoot. Most of Cleveland is. Do you have any plays you really like from the Cavs, or any guys that you think you'll have a decent amount of?
I think Clarkson would be one of the guys, and Tristan Thompson as well. There's not really any reason he's standing out other than price for me, but he's been averaging 30 minutes over the past month. I don't really have one guy I would stay away from probably is Larry Nance, who now that John Henson is in the lineup, he hasn't really been producing nearly as much.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And yesterday was even worse. Was it yet? No, it was yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. They're on a as you mentioned, back to back. He played 17 minutes. That's pretty ugly. Staying away from him. Want to move? Well, actually, let's do it. Let's move to Detroit and Dallas. Before we do, I should let you know that if you want to get 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum subscription, all you got to do is use the sign-up code Deeper Dive, all one word. Deeper Dive gets you 50% off right off the top of your first month at awesemo.com. Awesemo Plus Platinum membership. Go to awesemo.com/join and click Begin Membership. We'll ask you what type of player you are, first of all, and get an idea of what would be best for you in terms of your package. That was kind of Alex's vision when he started this site. Yeah, I'm going to speak for you here because you've told me that. You've told me that many times in the past. And we also have weekly packages, $3.95 a week. But if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, awesemo.com/join, you'll see videos on all of our best, most popular tools, how to use them, what they are. So you can get an idea of what you're getting into without diving in head first. There's the Awesemo, or the ownership projections, the player projections, the top stack tool, the boom or bust tool, the Fantasy Cruncher add-on, the lineup builder, all of our premium articles, and so much more. Use the sign-up code Deeper Dive, all one word. It'll get you 50% off your first month of Awesemo Plus subscription. All right, Detroit, Dallas actually has the highest total on this slate at 219. Not great. Pistons are 7.5-point dogs. I believe this game's in Mexico City. I think it is. Yeah, that would make sense because I would think at home they wouldn't be 7.5 points. Yeah. 105.8 implied for them, 113.3 for the Mavs. Let's actually start with the Pistons and get an idea of, number one, what are we doing if Andre Drummond plays? And if he doesn't play, Blake Griffin on DraftKings is 6,700. He's going to become ultra chalk, no question. Same with FanDuel, where he's 7,100. Same with Yahoo, where he's weighing in at 27. This is like a pivotal spot on this slate.
Yeah, I agree because Drummond just gets so many rebounds, like 15 or 16 a game. And while a guy's replacing him, the team's not going to get as many rebounds, but most of those rebounds will be dispersed to guys, and Blake Griffin has to be the number one guy who's really seen his rebounding fall since he moved to Detroit. So I think Blake Griffin would be a great play if Drummond sits. And then, of course, Christian Wood, who's been backing up Drummond. This is a guy who everyone's been raving about being a great player when he's on the court. He just doesn't see the court that much. This could be his opportunity to really get out there. And if he plays 20 minutes, that's what he's kind of priced for. If he starts in place of Andre Drummond, I have to expect maybe mid-20s, and then you have a really good value.
All right. Well, if Drummond plays, are you on him?
I think he's fine. He's not gonna stand out. I think he's the same price as Embiid pretty much. And don't love the matchup versus Dallas. He's not as good a player as Embiid, so I'll probably lean that way. But how about you? Would you be on Drummond? Maybe he's kind of sneaky because he's questionable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with him. There's not much about Dwight Powell and Porzingis center rotation that really concerns me all that much. At last I looked, I'm pretty sure Maxi Kleber was played like far fewer minutes than usual last game, and Porzingis saw a decent amount of run at the 5. No, I'm sorry. It was Kleber played 15, I think, backing up Dwight Powell, and he got and Kristaps Porzingis got a minute or two at the 5. But nevertheless, that doesn't bother me. I still don't have a problem with Drummond. I do think, though, that, and I'll get your take on this, if Drummond is out, it's going to be hard to get away from Blake. He hasn't been very good, but one of the biggest things that took a hit has been his rebounding this season. You take Drummond off the floor, and now you're going to see a significant uptick in rebounding opportunities. His usage is already close to 30%, I think 29.6%. So it's not like he's not getting shots up, and it's not like he's not playing minutes. Hell, he basically hit his rock bottom last game, and it was just as he began to look like he was trending upwards. He shot 1 for 9, scored 5 points, had 11 fantasy points in 34 minutes. No matter how much he struggled, I don't believe that if Drummond is out, that Blake Griffin is going to be a big disappointment.
Yeah, I mean, just the extra rebounds. I think that'll seal the deal for me. For comparison, Christian Wood only gets 20% of defensive rebounds. Andre Drummond has 35%. So if Blake Griffin's playing with someone who's averaging half as many rebounds almost, then that's going to be a significant amount of rebounds. He could get like 2 or 3 more on average.
Yeah, it's a huge upgrade, and one that I'll definitely be getting to. What else are you doing with Detroit? Is there anything here that intrigues you?
I think there's some guys that stand out. One other beneficiary of Drummond being potentially out is that Markieff Morris would probably get more minutes because he's been a direct backup to Blake Griffin. If Blake Griffin's going to play more minutes at the 5 because they don't want Wanamaker to really play a lot of minutes, then Markieff's going to have to play more than he has been. So he'd be kind of an alternative to a Wanamaker kind of value. In addition, Bruce Brown, not a very exciting player because Derrick Rose has been spelling him, and that limits his minutes upside. But he's dirt cheap on FanDuel, so maybe as a punt, you could go there.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good point. First of all, what would you be giving Wood if Drummond sits? What type of minutes are you looking at for him?
I'd say about 26. I was looking at the last game where Andre was in foul trouble. Christian Wood picked up about 12 first half minutes, so they are comfortable running him out there a good amount. And I don't think the looming threat of Thonmaker is going to really detract from his minutes.
God, I hope not. Christian Wood is a quality per minute guy too. 1.19 DraftKings points per minute this season. He can rack up the scoring. So even at $4,000 on DraftKings, I'm not at all opposed to getting there. He'd be, in my opinion, one of the best value plays on the slate. $3,600 and power forward eligible on FanDuel. Also pretty appealing on Yahoo. You've got him at minimum salary. So they got a ton of minimum salary guys today. One more thing I'll just point out. Blake Griffin with Drummond off the court since the start of last season. 36% usage, 28% assist rate, 15% total rebound rate, which when you look at what his rebound rate is this year, I'm not saying that's what it's going to be, 15%, but on this season alone, Blake Griffin's rebound rate is 9%. So that's a huge upgrade, and 1.36 fantasy points per minute. So there's just, as you mentioned, the rebound seal the deal. There's no real way to get away from that. On the Dallas side, what are you doing with Luka Doncic, a guy that he checks every single box? I was actually going over a couple of things just to see how often he's hitting certain numbers. In his last 20 games, he has 70 fantasy points or more 8 times, and 16 times he's gone 55 plus DraftKings points. He's really been the most reliable fantasy contributor on the season.
Oh yeah, I mean, Luka has been a monster. The price tag really reflects that at 11.4K on DraftKings, 11.8 on FanDuel. I think that that would be tenable if you had a lot of value plays that allowed you to kind of squeeze them in there. But I don't think that if you're just optimizing based on kind of the projection of your lineup overall, you're going to really naturally land on him a ton. But he's a tremendous player, and if the value goes off, then you're going to need Luka in a lot of cases.
Minutes have been weird. Rick Carlisle's been kind of strange with how he's doling out minutes. Like, for example, Hardaway was playing 35 a night, and then he came down to 26, 20, 25. Then he played 36. Porzingis played a season-high 37 minutes last time out. I think Dwight Powell's like one of the few players where you can reliably get 25, 26 minutes from him. Luka, of course, too. But with DeLon Wright out, what do you think of JJ Barea here? Is there any reason that you might land on him? Maybe Seth Curry. Barea is always been a good per minute guy. So at near minimum salary, what are you thinking?
So I mean, Barea's going to be matched up against Derrick Rose. I think it's I don't think they're going to want him out there a ton. I thought he's pretty popular. So I mean, whenever you have a third string guy who doesn't even crack the rotation normally come in, usually that's a big red flag, especially Barea because he's not starting. If he was starting somehow, then I'd maybe take some shots on him. But until I see a little bit more, I'm not really considering him a DFS asset. But maybe there's something I'm missing here, man. What do you think?
No, I don't think there's anything that you're missing. I think I understand why some people would consider him, because here's why. I don't know how many minutes he's going to play. I don't think any of us do. You know, he could play 12, he could play 18, he could play 19. I really don't know. But you look at his per minute numbers, and he's pretty much just good on a per minute basis. Like over the last 2 seasons, he's averaging, he's averaging 1.2 fantasy points per minute. That's great for a minimum salary guy. If he gets 20 minutes, you're probably going to get decent enough numbers there, but I have no idea if we will. He's a good passer, so you know that's a benefit. He can score this season in his limited opportunities. He has 26% usage rate, 32% assist rate, and that's way down from even last year and the year before in terms of assists. So I guess the hope is that, hey, if Barea plays 21 minutes, you could easily get 30 fantasy points from him, and I guess that's appealing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the way he plays that is if he's balling to begin with. I think that the easiest way to do this is to compare him to a guy like Brad Wanamaker at the same kind of price point. And Brad Wanamaker is not as good a fantasy producer, but I feel like the minutes are more locked in because Marcus Smart being out just opens up more minutes than DeLon Wright being out.
Okay. Anything else from this game on either side?
Dorian Finney-Smith has been playing more than 30 minutes in some games. He's a decent value option if you need someone in the 4Ks.
Okay. Last one here, Denver. Portland, 4-4, baby. When we're done, stick around right here on the same page. Live Before Locks coming up next. Eddie Fear, Chris Spags going to take you till 8 p.m. Eastern time. Portland and Denver. the Denver Nuggets are 7-point favorites, 111.3 implied, 104.3 for the Portland Trailblazers, 215.5 total. Just not any real high totals on this game, on this slate today. And 3 of 4 teams are 7-point favorites or higher. But Denver coming off of a road trip that they definitely struggled on. I believe it was a four game road stretch in the East Coast. Lost to Philly, lost to Brooklyn, lost to Boston, and beat New York, but that doesn't everybody. So now they come back home in front of the Nuggets faithful against a pretty weak Portland team. Nikola Jokic is 8,800 on DraftKings or FanDuel. He's now cheaper than Hassan Whiteside. It's been a struggle for him, no question. I actually posted a tweet and a video of him from the other day, captioned "This is his season in a nutshell," where he cuts in and gets a pass and it just goes straight off his chest, and then he grabs his head and starts wobbling around, and like he doesn't know where he is, nor did he care. However, if there's one thing I can say about Jokic is, even despite a bad season, he still has a usage rate of 25%. He still has an assist rate of 33%. He still has a 17% rebound rate. He's still playing 34 minutes in competitive games. So it's not like he doesn't still have triple-double upside. It's just he hasn't been nearly as good as he's been in the previous 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think the matchup is pretty good for Denver here because Portland, they are a strong offensive team, but on the defensive end, not nearly as good. They also play at a reasonably fast pace. So I think that Jokic is a pretty reasonable play tonight. As you mentioned, he's not maybe performing as well as we've been used to. And we haven't seen many games where he kind of plays 35, 36 minutes. So maybe not quite as good a fantasy value as previous years, but pretty reasonably priced tonight. I could take some shots on him.
Okay. What are you doing with the rest of this team? For anyone that's just joining us or joined us after we got started, you still have we don't have any news on Jamal Murray yet, and we don't have any news on Millsap. Murray said with that trunk contusion that he thought he's going to play, but that doesn't really mean anything. So we'll pay close attention. Unfortunately, this is the last game of the slate. Unfortunately, Drummond doesn't play till 9:00. So, pray to the basketball gods that this helps, or that we get some information early. But with what we know right now, I guess, assuming that these guys are in, what are you doing with Denver against the Trailblazers?
Well, I think Jeremy Grant's a great play because even when Millsap has played, we've seen games where Grant has outplayed him and played a good amount of minutes. So when you throw in the fact that Millsap may not even play, we end up with a guy who's significantly underpriced tonight. He'd be someone that I feel comfortable putting in a flex spot or something. If Millsap is in, a guy I would like maybe late swapping to is Mason Plumlee, a guy who is high variance because he backs up Jokic, and Jokic is foul prone, and Plumlee's a really good per minute producer. So if in that scenario, at least you got someone that has a lot of potential.
Okay. El Negro Loco, our boy, just gave us $5 in Super Chat, said, Josh, please play the beat that sounds like robots having sex during the Deeper Dive Live Before Lock crossover. Thank you in advance. So, Josh, $5 just for you to play the same beat. I'm assuming it's yesterday. Appreciate you, El Negro Loco. You know that. All right. Top plays from Denver. If you had to give a couple guys, and are there any priorities here? It might be site specific, but any guys you see as priorities for the Nuggets?
So the most likely situation is we don't know by 8 p.m. whether Millsap's playing.
Which really sucks.
Well, it sucks, but a lot of people make their lineups assuming everyone who's questionable is in. And that means that on non-late slope sites like Fantasy Draft and FanDuel, Jeremy Grant's likely going to be underowned, where he has a lot of potential tonight. Millsap's out, he'll probably play 30 minutes, and that would be huge. That's basically a free square in that scenario. So that's a core play of mine. I think some of the other guys like Will Barton, Gary Harris, They're pretty reasonably priced, and then Plumlee is kind of a dart throw where you definitely don't want him with Jokic, but once in a while, even coming off the bench, have a good game. And actually, one of the guys in chat was mentioning that last year, Plumlee and Jokic started alongside each other a few games. That's the most likely thing with Grant in the mix, but do you think that's a possibility?
No, I think that my assumption is with the lineup that Portland has, Carmelo Anthony, Kent Bazemore out there. You just said it, with Jeremy Grant in the mix. I think that makes a pretty big difference. Hernan Gomez was the guy that they were turning to last year. I guess, did they have Trey Lyles still? I think they did. But Mike Malone really appears to like Jeremy Grant. And, the reason, is it possible that we see some of that? It might be, but there's also Michael Malone also said that he wants to get Michael Porter Jr. involved more too. And last game, Michael Porter Jr. played 14 minutes. That's the most he's played maybe all season. So if I'm taking Michael Porter Jr.'s insertion into the rotation, or at least like more than 5 minutes, and the fact that Jeremy Grant, whenever Paul Millsap is playing very limited minutes, is the one that benefits the most, I don't think, especially in this matchup, that we'd see Plumlee alongside Jokic, but that's just my take on it.
Yeah, I agree. It was just kind of interesting point someone made that I didn't even consider.
I mean, if it happens, that would be huge, but I would I like Jeremy Grant a lot if Millsap's out personally.
One wrinkle in the rotation last game is Jamal Murray only played the first 5 minutes. So that meant Monty Morris played a lot more minutes, and that probably opened up some more backup minutes for some other guys.
Yeah, and an approach that you can take here, if you're willing to run some risk, Alex, Christian Wood, Monty Morris, and Jeremy Grant are all $100 separated on DraftKings. So if you're hoping that even one of Millsap, Murray, or Drummond is out, you have the direct replacement right there, as long as you have $4,000 in cap space available.
Yeah, I mean, it can really pay to have several guys in the later games. Of course, the 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. game is not very appealing, so almost everyone's going to have a lot of guys in the 9 p.m. games. But it could make sense to at least have 2 or 3 guys in this last game just for late swap purposes.
Okay, let's close it out with Portland here. And hey, I think you saw it in chat already, but who doesn't like free stuff, right? Everybody likes free stuff. You get 300 likes. I think we're at 289 right now. And by the way, I'm well aware he said, please don't play the music. I just think it's funnier to say he did. So if we get 300 likes, where is it, man? I'm scrolling. What are we releasing for free today with 300 likes? Do you remember? Because I don't. I totally forget.
Syllabus.
Thank you. The NBA expert syllabus. Oh, great day to do that, Josh. And what's 800 or 900 likes, Josh? Sorry, I am totally unprofessional. There you go. Totally unprofessional. I apologize. Won't happen again. Let's talk about Portland, and then we'll close it out, hand it over to the Live Before Lock fellas. So is there anything you like here against a very good and very slow Denver team? Great defense, slow pace. Anything stand out for you on the Blazers?
Yeah, I think that's the standout point here is Denver. First of all, they play at one of the slower paces in the league. The defensive ratings are also one of the best in the league, and that's how you see a team like Portland with a 104 team total. These guys aren't priced down very much, so none of them are really going to be core plays of mine, but I have some fringe interest in some of these stars like Lillard, McCollum, Whiteside, etc.
Would you rather play Whiteside or Jokic on FanDuel?
Probably Jokic. I mean, it's just a situation where the matchup's much better for Denver than Portland here. There's not really much of a lean other than that, but is there one way you're leaning here?
Yeah. You know what's funny? I'm not a DVP guy, but for centers, I'm willing to take a look at it on occasion. The Blazers and Nuggets are giving up the 29th and 30th most points, or first and second most points to the position this season. It's surprising, but they've struggled to protect the basket, and they haven't done great at limiting opposing centers. That isn't to say I'm in love with either of them, but I still think that at a cheaper price point than Whiteside, Jokic just, I don't know, maybe you feel differently. He does feel like just a safer option, even though he's not having a great season. So
definitely. Yeah, I mean, most of these guys, their prices don't change that much from day to day, so you can just look at who has a better matchup, and Denver is one of the worst teams to go up against in the league.
For sure. All right. What else here? Are you getting to McCollum or Lillard with any abundance at all? I think we pretty much hit on everything. Kent Bazemore, I don't have really any semblance of faith in him. Carmelo Anthony's 5,800 across the board. Anything you're doing with that?
I see these guys as being a little bit better on FanDuel than on DraftKings. So I could see myself with some shares, but really these guys are just so that you don't have all the chalk. So
right.
if you need a guy that's going to be a little sneaky, then maybe throw in Lillard, Whiteside, or I mean even Bazemore on FanDuel. Pretty risky, but I don't hate it.
Okay, I'm with you. I think that'll do it for us. Stick around. Live Before Lock's coming up next. Eddie Fear, Chris Baggs. And hey, if you enjoy the show, even if you don't need free stuff, we greatly appreciate you guys hitting that thumbs up button. Thanks for the super chat, David. I just saw that now. We appreciate you. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoy the show. You want to help support us. We appreciate it. And by the way, El Negro Loco, don't worry. I highly doubt he's going to play that song. I read it perfectly, but play the song, Josh. Subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. I know one of those 3 down votes is probably from El Negro Loco because he doesn't want to hear robots making love during the break. We'll make it a quick break. We love you guys. Thanks for hanging out. Good luck tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive. You're with who are you with tomorrow?
With Josh, I think it's going to be a whole different lineup.
All right, there it is. Alex Baker, Josh Ingleman will close the work week out on the Deeper Dive, presented by Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Good luck tonight, everyone.
Lock Show. We're taking you through all the finer points of this 4-game NBA slate we have in front of us today. I'm Chris Spags, joined by my Thursday buddy, the man himself, Fast Eddie Fear. How are you doing, Eddie?
Well, I'm going to be honest. Let me move the mic in. Your introductions of me have contained far fewer superlative adjectives of late, and it's kind of starting to hurt my self-esteem.
I would say it's because I played Damian Jones yesterday, but that is not why. It's related to my own personal enthusiasm. I think when I'm in a good mood, you get more hyperbole, and when I'm like tired or run down or just kind of,
are you tired? Are you spent after a prolonged squawk? What goes wrong with you today?
No, it's nothing in particular. Just we've been going hard since the beginning of NFL season. Thankfully, that end of the tunnel's coming up. But I feel like I'm just trying to get to 2020 right now, and then I'll be a new man again. But for the end of 2019, I feel like it's hard, man, doing this. And a slate like this, I will say, Eddie, does not make it more fun for me.
I love a slate like this.
Oh my god!
Super.
All right,
obvious.
well, we'll talk about it.
It's messy as hell. And Damian Jones, by the way, was a very solid play. I would not. I almost did a whole Twitch thing today. I had like an hour to talk about for feedback with stuff because I got some amazingly good feedback last night and some not constructive feedback, which is fine for the purposes of me getting shit from time to time. That's just fine. I don't mind whatsoever. If you've lost some money and you want to vent, I am here for your venting. But there was some really good feedback that was, more based on context. And I didn't like this for this reason, and I didn't like this for this reason. The real reason it bothers me is because it's bad for you. If you're people watching the show and a play doesn't work out and your instinct is to say, Eddie, that was a shit play, it is a very bad correlation in your brain to so closely align good play with worked out. Now, that's obviously a Venn diagram that intersects quite a bit. You make more good plays, more of them are going to work out. That's a very good point. But that is not a high percentage play. That's a play that will fail most of the time and pay off extremely well when it doesn't. Last night, the value was incredibly, incredibly thin. And center was incredibly, incredibly thin. And you had a guy who I have no different read on the situation, having watched that game, who is in an extremely good spot. And if you did a lot of research and went back and read the coach's comments and every word that has come out of Lloyd Pierce's mouth and everything else going on and watched the rotations, it's been pretty clear that they're trying to get him to play 28, 30 minutes. And either the game blows out or he gets in wicked foul trouble like last night. It's happened literally 6 of the last 7 games. And in the other game, he played 28 minutes and change. So I'm convinced that's actually a really, really good call. And for reference, the Hawks played 3 people at center last night. They all scored more than a fantasy point a minute. Bruno Fernando got some junk time. Alex Len played 20 whatever minutes and had a very decent line for that limited time. And Damian Jones started, got in significant foul trouble, got 4 fouls in only his 14 minutes. And then there was the blowout, so didn't come back in the fourth, but had like 15 or 16 fantasy points in his 14 minutes. So I think that makes a ton of sense. So again, my big issue with the feedback isn't so much that people are dumping on me. That's fine. I get plenty of credit from a lot of people when things go well. I've gotten 35,000 compliments on Twitter this year and 12 people jumping up and down on me. I really don't mind the 12 people. But my biggest concern is that you look at that situation and went, oh, that went horribly. What a bad take. Like there was, I guess I'll leave it at that. It's like an hour-long conversation. Maybe I'll Twitch about it tomorrow over the weekend at some point or something. But, it's really, if you're playing this to win correctly in GPPs, you should frequently expose yourself to plays which will fail most of the time. So it's really, I think, a really bad negative mental space to get yourself into, to just correlate. That didn't work out. It was a horrible play. That's going to lead you bad places. As a matter of fact, probably the most donkey thing in DFS that we've seen again and again and again and again in every sport for as long as, for the decade that this has been around, is that a guy has 11 bad games and then has a good game apropos of nothing systemically changing. There aren't super extra minutes. He just happens to takes 11 shots every night. One night he makes 9, and he goes from being 3% owned all those other days to all of a sudden 37% owned the next day because the shots fell in the day before. correlating good play with succeeded and vice versa is not something in the long term that is going to bring you success. So for your own sake,
I feel you.
Be nice.
I feel you on that. And I think that's sort of the thing too, when we're up on this, this platform every day, giving out the advice and the plays that we're making. I mean, like Josh talked about Chetty Osman for a while. Chetty smashed too in that period of time that he was out there, and then he just didn't play. It is the NBA, and those are the things that happen. But I just like literally put on the stream as I was about to head out because I had to go to an early dinner plan. And I was like, oh, Eddie's in on Damian Jones. Sure, I'll use him to finish this one lineup that I'm putting in. Only put in one lineup yesterday. Line was top 1,000 in the big tournament, except for Damian Jones and Brandon Ingram just being like, I just needed 2v2 that, or rather, just whatever two players there would have been better. Marcus Morris or somebody like that. But it's on you. Like any pick you make, like I went with Damian Jones because I agree that's a fantastic center matchup. The foul trouble sucks. 4 fouls in 14 minutes. Very productive though in terms of fouls per minute. But that is the nature of the beast. So I'm glad you got that chance to talk about it because it applies for many of us here. And I know for you in particular, you make a lot of takes. You make a lot of dig your feet into the ground. And this is the guy. And you plant your flags pretty heavy.
Well, I try. That's the other thing is I don't want it to be a super flag planty situation. And what I really try to do when I do this is say, I like this guy. This is why. This is all my rationale because I want to empower other people to make the decisions. Because I knew Damian Jones was way off the board. Like, you don't need me to talk about why I might like Brad Wanamaker tonight for 11 minutes. Everyone knows the reasons to like Brad Wanamaker. If I'm going to say I like Damian Jones, the reason and someone's like, you loved him, you spent so long on him. I spent so long on him because I can't bring it up absent other information. So I have to go through the entire thing. I liked Tomas Satoransky last night. That's a little bit off the board, so I had to spend 6 minutes on it. So then people are like, oh, you love that guy. You talked about him forever. I talked about him forever because it isn't that obvious. And, Damian Jones, I said, I think he's going to be 10%, or he's going to be 3% owned. I'd like 10. Tomas Satoransky was going to be like 6 or 7. I liked him more than, $900 less. People were playing DJ Augustine and plenty of other plays I was trying to get away from. So I said I'd have closer to like 20%, I think is what I said there, which is still a commitment. And that also did not work out. Again, the blowout and various other things, but he just played like garbage. So I think it's important to as much as I get your plant your flag statement, and there are times that I will say like if Brad Wanamaker was going to hold at 55% owned tonight, yes, I would want very little of that because the upside isn't so great. It's pretty safe floor play. I have no problem with that in cash. $3,100 or less, that's the guy I would put in my cash lineup. In tournaments, if that guy was going to be 55, 60% owned, yeah, I'd have looked to go other places because it's just not that likely that he's the highest scoring player in that range. That's not close to that likely, to be honest. I mean, Marcus Smart missed the last 2 games. Wanamaker played 19 minutes in each of those. I haven't projected for 21 tonight. That feels pretty good. I think you can make an argument. One of the reasons I do kind of like him tonight is I think he's the most likely guy to get Furkan bonus, which is the one fairly bad defender on an otherwise extremely good defensive
But let me
team.
cut you off before you dig too deep into the Sixers because we got news that Al Horford is officially out. So that could change everything
Again,
a little bit.
Would have liked that a little bit later, but I will I'll let you talk for a second. I'll push forward a ratings update that incorporates that information because we're still pretty early.
Yeah, so just real fast, wanted to put that news out there. Al Horford is out, so we'll talk about the ramifications of that. I'm sure Mike Scott going to jump up a little bit, but I'll be monitoring the projections and all that. Also, real fast, quick spiel, because we didn't do this up top. We kind of just went into the content, but we want to thank Fantasy Draft, of course, for being the presenting sponsor of the show. They are the official home of rake-free DFS, and they are offering you a free week trial right now if you go to fantasydraft.com and use the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. And again, the thing on Fantasy Draft is all the contest entry fees go right to the winners on there, so you're making a lot more money if you do win on fantasydraft.com, and also saving money whether you win a lot or lose a lot, whatever the case may be. Just shakes out better for you in the long term. So go to fantasydraft.com right now. Use that promo code AWESEMO. We do have a promo going on right now. We have opened up the strategy syllabus. All of our guys on staff give our picks for the cash game lock of the day, GPP play of the day, all that type of stuff. So that is free right now on the site. If we get to 900 likes, so you guys, we need about 311 more. We hit that number, ownership projections will be opened up for you guys for free today. So we have a little bit of time here, and it's a short slate. So get that like button in there now, and we'll update you guys if we get to that threshold. But need 900 likes, so your support right now. Get together as a community. That's what the holidays are all about, coming together as family. So you guys as a little YouTube family, go chime in right now and hit that like button. Also got a super chat here from Kirk Lanahan saying, when using Fantasy Cruncher, first of all, thank you, Kirk. This question is, when using Fantasy Cruncher, should I set settings for global exposure to after each lineup or based on amount of total lineups run? That is one I don't even change. I don't really think that's the most relevant because generally you're building so many lineups that it's not going to matter. But I think I have it as I have it after each lineup is created. I don't really notice a difference either way. But if I ever hear anything different, I will tell you about it, Kirk. But that is the way that I've run it. So that's not a thing I'm worried about. All right, Eddie, you got any thoughts here on Mike Scott now that you had some time, or whatever else, maybe the trickle-down ramifications of no Al Horford today for Philadelphia?
Yeah, so let me get to my most recent Google docu here. So this is the third game of the year that Al Horford will have missed. Furkan started both of the previous two. One of those, Josh Richardson also missed, and Matisse started. You got reasonable amounts of Mike Scott off the bench. I want to say somewhere in the range of 19 to 22 minutes from him. And I'm a little gun shy on Mike Scott. We had one Mike Scott game this year. I was not a fan because in that situation previously, nothing like that had happened, but he, made all the shots and played tons of time because they were on a back-to-back and they rested everyone and you got the quintessential Mike Scott game. But I think Mike Scott is a fine play. There's not a lot of value on this slate at the moment. I would project him for somewhere in the range of 21 minutes and 18 fantasy points, maybe 17 and a half, I suspect. That's fine. It's really going to come into an ownership question. I imagine he'll be slightly over-owned based on his recent superlative bench performance, in a game where Embiid was out, actually. So, I imagine he will climb his way to like 15, 18, 19% owned in a bad matchup with lots of other intriguing options in that 3-1 to 3-5 range. I probably wouldn't get there. I would prefer Brad Wanamaker, who I would have projected very slightly higher. And at this point, if I had to guess, might be less owned. It'd be really interesting to figure out how that goes. Maybe it's still going to be more owned. I guess Brad will probably still be more owned. So we'll wait for an ownership update, but I'm not doing backflips over Mike Scott. I presume they will start Furkan Korkmaz and Matisse Thybulle. It ends up being a little site dependent, price dependent, which of those guys I would prefer. They would project pretty similarly for me. They're not even the same position on FanDuel, so either of them I'm fine with there. This makes their minutes look a little better. I would prefer either one over James Ennis. I would prefer either one over Mike Scott by a point or two, and I suspect they may end up being slightly lower owned. But none of these guys in what's a pretty ugly matchup am I super excited about getting to. It's worth taking a second to review the slate. It's a pretty ugly slate as a whole. I think every game is currently sitting on an over-under somewhere between 211 and 219. None of those are numbers that in the modern NBA make my socks roll up and down. But these I honestly I'm retired from sports bet calls this year. I lost 2 in a row to fall to 5-3. I'm not doing another one. That number for the Sixers and Celtics actually seems a little high for me at 211, which is where I think I saw it last. This is one of 2 opening night rematches we get here that are fun conference battles. We had the 76ers and the Celtics play on opening night in a not very impressive game where the Sixers wrecked them pretty well. I think they won by 14, 107-93. I was looking at it earlier today, but I can't recall the final score offhand, but I think that's it. And also Portland and Denver, which was supposed to be a significant rivalry in the West this year, also played on opening night. So we get to redux that one as well. But no one here I'm super excited with. I do think some degree of exposure, if you're playing a lot of lineups to the 4 value gentlemen I mentioned there, makes some sense. Joel Embiid was already one of my favorite plays on the night at his ownership. I really like the matchup for him. There are other intriguing centers. I'm kind of like Jokic, especially at his price on FanDuel. Good history versus Whiteside. Been more assertive the last few games. You look at those last few games, the production has been at least tolerable to good for a guy who costs, high 8s, 9,000. So I don't have a problem with that. Drummond, if he plays, depending on when that news hits, very, very sexy. But But I was already a massive fan of Joel Embiid. This might tick him up a minute or two. Historically hasn't been the case, but I think it's worth pointing out. Well, there's a few things. So I'm just rambling on about 6 topics. I promise I'll get done at some point, but important things to say keep coming up, so I'm just getting there. Both these teams are on a back-to-back. Now, that doesn't mean a metric ton to me because this is an important game to both teams. All right, Philly, Boston had a pretty exciting game last night. Obviously, an amazing game from Kemba that, I liked his price on FanDuel and think I gave him a mention on the show, but I didn't see that coming. But they had the great game with the Pacers yesterday. And the Phillies. Yep. The 76ers are on the front end. I think they host. They play the Pelicans tomorrow. So long story being, I do think both teams are a little gussied up for this game. Sad that Horford doesn't get his much-deserved approbation from Boston making his return to the city. Hopefully he's, in a suit, gets a nice tribute video anyway. But this is a game I do think both teams gussy up for, if you will excuse my old man verbiage, get off my lawn. One other thing I wanted to mention when we discuss Brad Wanamaker is that Carson Edwards is down with the G League. And that is relevant when you're projecting your minutes for this game. It's one of the reasons I had him at 20. Actually, I think 22. I said 21. I have him at 22. And it even opens the ceiling a little bit more. I don't think he randomly busts out a 30-minute game or anything like that, but it does make me feel a little more secure in it. And I kind of like the way the defenses should end up aligning for his game here. So, I don't know. There's a whole lot of information about things.
It was indeed a lot of information about things. I will confirm that. Real fast, wanted to get your thoughts on Mike Scott's minutes projection because I know it's important for some people out there. I see Osmo has it right now at 22 minutes. And that does not make Mike Scott pop as a top value play at all. So it seems like he would be on the side of not playing him right now, at least on this most recent run of projections and his various minute runs and all that. Well, so where would you take out minutes wise for Mike Scott?
Yeah, I am, and for what it is worth, I am basing this on what happened in previous games too. Let me confirm that what I remembered was correct because I pulled that all completely out of my butt, and hopefully it's right, but I can't specifically guarantee that it is. I believe in the previous games Horford was out, he did a little extra bench duty and played something like 18 and 21 minutes in those 2 games. But that was top of head, and I don't want to get this wrong. But in at some point in that lengthy spiel I did, I mentioned that I had him for about 21 minutes, which is a super not exciting thing. And again, I suspect he engenders more ownership than he deserves with how I would have him projected. But let me just hold on. Stop pushing me. Little joke there. Yeah. Right. You would think that, okay, that's just not going to work. So we're going to the internet. There's a reason I download all this stuff so I don't have to do this in the middle of shows. But here it is anyway. I want to double check and make sure I'm right that this is the third Horford game out. That was also sort of out of my butt. Let me check and see. Nailed it. All right. Third game out. Let's see. One on the 12th of November. One on the 29th. On the 12th of November, let's see if I got the starters right too. You guys don't know how often I'm wrong and just nobody notices. First time he was out, the other 4 main starters were in. Furkan started. Mike Scott, 18 minutes and 56 seconds off the bench. It should also be noticed that both of these games were against really inferior teams and they struggled to climb away. These 2 games.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? There's a notification I just got. Andre Drummond officially a game time decision, which is important. But the reason why had an allergic reaction to an avocado. So it's not his eye. It's the avocado.
Was it on toast?
Unclear. I mean, they are down in Mexico City, so he might have enjoyed some fine guacamole-based dish.
He might have. It's more of a Tijuana thing, but he may have uttered the famous words, "Donde está el demostración del burro?"
Oh, yeah. The donkey shows will get you. I mean,
hey, nice pickup.
I would trust the avocados would be the least healthy there. But anyway, sorry, go on. That is.
I don't even remember what I was saying. I went through donkey shows and avocados. And by the way, the next time I'm in a band, I'm calling it donkey shows and avocados. I'm just saying that's the greatest thing about. I got to make a note to myself.
It's so punk rock. It
really is. I'm gonna. There's a whole thing to do there with like avocados. Anyway.
So while we're talking Mexico, and we can circle back to some stuff because I know you're going to have a lot of trains of thought that come through. So feel free to do that whenever, because
I'd seem good. I was saying that
I get paid either way, Eddie. So just, but Blaze,
the shows with me are the bonus, aren't they? Because you're just like, hey, I had this thing, and you go ahead and talk. I'm going to make a ham sandwich.
Yeah, my ROI, much like Josh, my ROI for the Eddie shows might be higher because I just get to look at my lineups and really think and hear your thoughts, and I go, and
I figure that's the only reason you guys tolerate me, because some of you guys may not know this. Some of the Awesome guys hate me. They just despise me for a reason I really don't understand. But I figure they tolerate.
Are we gossiping? Can we do the gossip hour?
Oh my God, that'd be great. We're gonna do a poll on Twitter. Which Awesome host frequently grumbles about my?
Blaze has a question in the premium Slack, which I do feel like is one I've heard asked a couple times, so I want to see what your thoughts are on it. Does playing in Mexico City in high altitude change anything for you guys? I wouldn't change anything for me because that's accounted for in the Vegas total. Anything like that, for the most part, is going to be a part of what Vegas gives you, and that's sort of what I build all my stuff off, and I think also heavily what Alex builds all of his projections off of. So that would not change anything for me, but I think a consideration, especially for a guy with avocado-based issues and not great cardio. But Eddie, what do you think?
And a history of respiratory, I won't go distress or something, but he had, it may not have been adenoid surgery, but he had some sort of sinus canal breath surgery, Andre Drummond this is, to expand his intake of oxygen, which is one of the things that helped him with much greater conditioning. I do not think it is incredibly relevant. I would think, and I haven't researched this, we haven't had many Mexico games, this being the 4th or 5th, something like that. If I don't know if we count the Spurs Timberwolves game of 6 years ago that had a fire in an elevator. That was a fun DFS day. One of the original, oh my God, what is FanDuel and DraftKings going to do days was when that game was canceled after lock, after the game was supposed to start because of a fire. That was a fun one. I was talking about many things. Yes, I would think if they played 1 million games there and you looked at it, you would generally see, as has been researched and shown, slightly fewer minutes for starters and slightly more minutes for bench players due to guys getting tired a little easier and either requesting a blow or just looking like they need one. So yes, I don't know how to apportion that, and I don't know if it's in any way significant. So I especially on a 4-game slate where you really don't have the luxury of, using barometric pressure and then atmospheric pressure and things as a, that's maybe a little bit too cute. I know everyone wants to be on the cutting edge, but there's always, stuff where I hear people talking about stats. So they're like, no, you don't understand. This court, the rims are in front of the LED board, and we've shown a 0.04% worse 3-point shooting rate for that. I'm just like, all right, stop. That's you're getting too cute. And I like to be pretty cute with random stuff, but it's close to too cute. But if you honestly ask my question, I imagine if you played 1 million games, you would get something like starters averaging 15 seconds less. So yeah, there you go. I imagine that's about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't think it's an appreciable difference. And to me, the Vegas total seems in line with what I would think it would be on a normal land. So I would say that's not anything too crazy to me. One other more kind of high-level question from Morgan Smith in the premium Slack. Does Horford being out help any of the Celtics players? Obviously, you talked about it before, but Horford's defense is really good. Sixers still a good defensive unit, still schematically strong, but definitely having a guy like him out there is going to impact things a little bit overall. But do you think there's any particular guy who gets a benefit from no Horford?
Well, I mean, Jason Tatum is sort of the common sense answer there. He was going to see most of that gas anyway, and this certainly is going to improve things for him a little bit. I had all those plays on the Celtics. Like I was doing the rankings today, and I believe all of the plays on the Celtics of the 4 non-Daniel Tice starters ranked as Bs in cash and As and GPPs, which feels like the worst punt because I almost want to pick a favorite there. It's a little bit site dependent. For me, it is still going to be Jaylen Brown, I think. I slightly go to Jaylen Brown, especially. It has to do with how I expect the defense to align. I think he gets less Josh Richardson now, which has been tough for him in the past. Point of fact, I had someone just tell me an hour ago that I was, he called me a not nice name and said that I just read a lot of game logs. I would not like Jaylen Brown, most of these guys, if I just read game logs, because he was absolute butt on the first day of the year. But the changes in the lineup, not having as many minutes at least out of Josh Richardson at their prices, probably I would first go to Jaylen Brown, though with this change, with Horford being out, it'd be really close from between him and Tatum. At their prices, I would defer a little bit to ownership between those two guys, but I would rather go to either of those two before I went to Kemba, which, by the way, is also not game logging because he's been fairly successful against Philadelphia in the past and against Ben Simmons and stuff. But I will still very hesitantly go Brown, Tatum, Walker, Hayward. But it's really important to note again, and this is what I'm talking before, this is not planting a flag. I don't differentiate between those guys at their salaries by much at all. They are all perfectly reasonable plays on the edge of cash viable, in a bad matchup, priced reasonably well, with enough GPP upside that they're pretty good GPP plays. I'm not looking to have more than one most of the time. That's I guess there. I was in the middle of answering the Mike Scott thing when we I don't know, we got into whatever. So in that first game he played the 19 minutes off the bench with Horford out and all the other guys in. And in that second game he played 21 minutes and 56 seconds. So it was 19 and 22. I was close. Now it should be worth pointing out that in the first of those games, the first thing I was saying was they were significantly worse of a basketball team without Al Horford in. They ended up, and again, they're a team that you can check my wallet regarding vis-a-vis the Wizards. They have not done a great job of smashing bad teams. In the two games Horford sat out, one was against the Cavs. They won by 1. One was against the Knicks. They won by 6. So whatever that means to you, it's worth pointing out that they did not lower the hammer in those games. And it's also worth mentioning, let me reload it because I seem to recall Embiid being even a little better than I expected in those games, or at least being, and again, I was yet another reason that I like Joel tonight. First of those games, 27 and 16 with 4, 1, and 2. That obviously gets you there. Not brilliant by Embiid standards, but good. And the other one, 27 and 17 with 2 assists and 3 blocks. So yeah. But that's sort of my takeaways there. I think we covered that pretty well. Top down. Got on both teams. Worth mentioning the bigs. I talked about Wanamaker, talked about the other 4 guys for the Celtics and roughly how I would rank them. Again, I don't have any super strong takes there, but again, please don't interpret that as Jaylen Brown amazing, Gordon Hayward trash. I like Jaylen Brown most of them, and I don't like him that much more than Jaylen Brown, who I like least of those 4 guys. Sorry, there's no line there for me that makes a ton of sense. While he is not Mo Wagner and some of these other guys, Tice does have a foul problem, and it has to be stated, and I'm imagining someone got to this earlier today, but Joel Embiid draws more fouls than just about anyone in the league. If you're on Narrative Street, there was the whole thing where he agreed with Shaq and Charles that he needed to be more aggressive and put his thing down a little more. And, now you've got Horford out there, and I think he's maybe even a little more inclined to put his thing down. So I don't like getting super narrative-y, but I don't think that's completely irrelevant. If he gives interviews and says, I think I need to be more assertive, and he's been plenty assertive. Guy posts up plenty, looks plenty aggressive to me. I don't think he's been as lackadaisical as those guys make out. It's funny because I think Shaq just comes at a lot of things because he relates to Embiid as wow, you are just physically massive compared to these guys. Make them feel your mass. I think that's sort of the thing. I really don't know how much that can be pushed, but I would be lying if I said that I don't think that is to some degree relevant. I feel better playing Joel Embiid with him having just made those comments than not having just made those comments, whatever that means to you.
I'll tell you what, it freaks me out, though, him being in the post and doing that same spin to the right he always does and just getting stripped over and over again, because I do feel like Boston is going to sniff that out pretty fast.
That's very canny. They do a very decent swarm on him. Yeah. Again, if you want to game log it, if you go back to that opening day, they were still speeding up Joel. I'm going to go find the box score since I keep referring to it. He did not play a ton. I want to say Joel Embiid on opening night played in the area of 20 minutes. Joel Embiid on opening night played 23 minutes and had 15 points, 13 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 blocks, and 5 personal fouls. I wonder who he fouled all those times. Fouled Gordon Hayward a lot, apparently, who had all the free throws on the other team. So Yeah, I don't look at this as an amazing spot for Joel Embiid, but I think the ceiling is there. I think you can certainly make a path of least resistance. Certainly think. I mean, there's a lot of things that work for him. I've mentioned 3 or 4 already. Another one is Brad Stevens in the past has not deviated lineup structure and rotations to specifically counter him when he should have, in my opinion. So there were times where they gave Semi Ojeleye minutes, and those could have come against Embiid, and they didn't do that, where I kind of like that matchup more for them than, say, Enes Kanter. So I still expect Joel Embiid to get his Enes Kanter time. And Enes Kanter time is just disco heaven for a center. So there's just a lot of reasons to like JoJo here. I have him as my second highest projected player after Luka.
Yeah, especially on a slate of this size, he can definitely be a difference maker today.
And again, I think I only very briefly looked at ownership, but I think I saw him in the 20s or something. And yeah, for me, I would try to get a little more than that. Don't mind Whiteside. Don't mind Jokic. Really like Drummond if he plays, especially on like non-swap sites. If it's just before lock, like if we get that particular bit of news, Drummond is very Karl Anthony Townsy in that he does not sit out a lot. He has not sat a game this year. So we can move to that game if you want to talk about what happens if he.
I want to clear our super chat queue real fast because he's built up and we do appreciate the super chat. So just burn through these real fast. From Christian Tixon, thank you for last night, Eddie. Keep up the great work. $50 super chat. So thank you, Christian. And just to show you, there's still love in the world, even when we talk about all the crappy things that sometimes come with these public eye moments. Eric Herman
I'm going to interrupt you to say I never look at it that way. I get an overwhelming amount of love and very little crap, which I absolutely welcome because that's the only way it's going to work. Like it's a really serious. I'm going to actually take 30 seconds and talk about something else that I did wrong. You're laughing, but you just make your ham sandwich there. So last night I screwed up. Not in liking guys who didn't do well. That happens. I was going to say every show, basically every show. I've got like 3 perfect shows in 5 years where I was like, oh my God, I said 48 things and they were all right, but that's pretty damn right. So I messed up every night. But where I messed up every night was I hated DJ Augustine. And I said it to exactly 2 people in private chats. And then I said it to Josh after lock. That's me screwing up. And I love that feedback because the guy was absolutely right. 3 people bitched and I was like, and I tweeted, I apologize. And I think people thought I was salty or complaining. I was legit apologizing because that's my job. And that's brilliant feedback. So I'm very, very far from perfect. And there's 3,000 of you and 1 of me. So there's going to be infinite crap that someone there knows that I don't. I want absolutely all of that junk. So, but yeah, just to go back to the beginning, I am treated extremely well by all of you. I have absolutely 0 complaints. I feel the love all the time. Much love back at all of you. Go right ahead. Sorry.
All right, I'm going to start treating you worse if you don't let me get through super chats. I got a couple here that I want to make sure to give these guys a proper love because we do appreciate them. Eric Herman, if Drummond sits, who gets a boost on Detroit? Wood or Blake? And who would benefit on Dallas' side? I mean, obviously Wood seems like the clear one. I know on the deeper dive, we heard Lofty and Alex talking about how Blake should see more rebounding upside. One of his flaws on the air. I don't know that I buy into that. It's a very limited sample size and court time of Blake without Andre, only about 50 minutes, but he had a 10% rebound rate. Blake baffles me. I don't really get what's going on fully with him this year.
Well, he's not 100%. There was a show earlier this week where I was talking about like, these are the guys that I expect to get well because they looked perfect to me. And I know they're better players. And it was Brad Beal for a while and Devin Booker and other guys were like, oh, no, I know that upside is still there. Those guys seem to be 100% for me. Blake does not look 100% for me. So I think it's a combination of Derrick Rose and his role in the offense, him not being 100%, slightly reduced minutes, but he's often everywhere from rebounds too. His assists haven't been nearly as good, where he had been really advancing as a playmaker for a number of years in a row. The shot doesn't look quite right, which I think is related to his lift being significantly lower. I actually went back and looked at, this year's jump shots and last year's jump shots, and I can see it. So I think that all comes together to make him not a terrible basketball player. And by way of all that, yeah, I really love him if Drummond is out. It depends when Drummond goes out and what the ownership's going to be, and everything is always relative to price and ownership, of course. But the combination of the extra usage and regardless as to how much of it you attribute to Drummond, everyone gets better at rebounding when they're not playing next to Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond is in the conversation of the greatest rebounders ever. He is in like the top 5 or 6. So not having that dude out there yanking down 17 a game increases the upside for everyone in rebounds. Like literally you would raise the rebound production for Bruce Brown by 1 and for Derrick Rose by 1, and for like they all go up, and for Blake by like, I don't know, I suspect something close to 3, probably maybe 2.5 or something. But just everybody gets more rebounds when that guy is not on the court. So yes, Christian Wood is the obvious one. I would not get carried away, but again, another value option who I think is going to be over. Well, I don't know how overlooked he's going to be. I have no idea how owned we expect him to be, but especially $3,600 on FanDuel, it's another guy where there's a massive upside opening, and I wouldn't have minded him anyway. If we did the show and there had not been a word about Andre Drummond and avocados and donkey shows, I still would have said, I kind of like Christian Wood tonight, especially FanDuel. $100 over the minimum. Guy gets double-digit fantasy points in his 12 minutes most games anyway. Is basically right now just strictly backing up Andre Drummond, but you tell me he only plays, I think you can project him for an extra minute because of Mexico City, if you want to go cute, bring the conversation full circle. But I would have still had no issue on a slate this short with $3,600. DK, $4,000, I think it is. It's a different kettle of fish. You still could do it, obviously. Just blowout run of a quarter, or even Andre Drummond gets in foul trouble is not an impossibility. This is a guy who can score 45 fantasy points in 20 minutes. So I would have had no issue with Christian Wood under any circumstance. So that's just going to be based on ownership. The other pieces of the front court are getting a little more dicey. There's obviously Blake. There you get into a Thon McCurr conversation, who probably, my guess will be, you get Christian Wood backed up by Thon McCurr at center in the event that Andre Drummond does not play. He is the bare minimum. Combined with things I did not rank him, that may be a mistake, but you would get quite possibly some small ball where you end up with both teams going low. This has a lot to do with some Dallas rotations that are all over the place right now, and especially after Delon Wright went out, you have Brunson, who thus far I've eschewed entirely from my rankings because I expected him to be down the trough based on coaches' comments and other things I've been seeing, and that's been the case. But you have Seth Curry and JJ Barea and a lot of other guys who at the start of the day looked like really interesting guys I wanted to talk about as sort of Wanamaker pivots and still have some appeal there. But long story short, depending on where we get that news relative to that game, I think Christian Wood is a pretty stellar play. It has been rare that people have late swapped correctly to guys. Now, if Drummond is named out in the next 6 minutes, recent history suggests we're going to see 35% Christian Wood. But if Andre Drummond is ruled out 7 minutes before that game, you're going to get 15 to 18% Christian Wood, maybe something like that. And that will be by far the most significant edge on the slate because it would just project extremely well. But the other thing to mention is that Andre Drummond being out really does open up something for everyone on that team. I am going to have more than a passing interest in Langston Galloway. I'm going to have more than a passing interest in Luke Kennard. I mentioned Galloway first because at their prices, I would actually prefer Galloway. The coaching staff really likes him. He tends to be the guy who picks up more minutes than he should when dudes are out, for lack of a better term. Not mattering whether it's Blake or other guys who have missed games on that team this year. You're frequently like, wow, they gave Langston Galloway 39 minutes. Like he always gets more minutes than I expect him to. I'll put it that way. And at their prices, I would probably rather Galloway over Kennard, but it would make Kennard very interesting for me. Might get a couple extra minutes for Derrick Rose. Because you just go small, and especially the way Dallas has been running, you can get Blake at center because Blake can guard Kristaps, who very possibly will be playing some center there, and Blake can also really guard Dwight Powell or Maxi Kleber. Maxi is not gigantic. Dwight Powell isn't such an offensive force that matching up with him on the defensive end is a priority. So, and I want to segue real quick to say, I have no idea what Dallas is going to do with parts of that rotation. Kristaps will get his time. That's good. I like Kristaps. That DK price is obviously really cheap. He is a guy who is struggling with his new role. I mentioned the other day an article, I think it was Shams Charania who wrote it for The Athletic, but they were talking about how Kristaps had to really remake a lot of his game to fit in with this Mavericks team. And it's relevant. I think he's healthy, and I think as this year goes on, he's going to get better and better and better. This is a big sort of buy low spot if you're playing season long, but this is, I believe, the nadir, if you will, for Kristaps Porzingis production. I like him quite a bit tonight. He's good on FanDuel. I suspect I'd have more than the field there, where I'm guessing I don't really remember how deep power forward is over there.
Also, we just got officially the news. Mike Scott is starting, and Alex also updated his minutes projection for him to 27 minutes. So does that factor? Do these two factors change anything at all for you with Mike Scott?
Yeah, quite a bit. Give me a second.
Sure.
See, when you get me talking,
we also have a couple super chats too. So let's make good time down the stretch.
It's not like I'm not talking or talking slowly. Like I'm really trying to be efficient with the time. Like I'm not skirting around here. So so Mike Scott started, I believe, just that one game this year against the Cavs, where he went off in that game. He got all the blowout time. I think 27 is still too high. With Jay Richback, I will go on record as saying I'll take the under on that against Boston. I will say he now plays 25 minutes. In the game against the Cavs, I believe, I will go check. I think he played the entire fourth quarter, and he started that game with no Embiid, and I think he ended on 24 minutes. So I think 27 is too much of a call there, but I'm going to triple check. I remember the rotation there perfectly because there's obviously a lot going on. So
he did not play the fourth in that game.
He did not play the fourth in that game. All right. He didn't play any of the fourth. That's right. It was the Kyle O'Quinn crushed the fourth. That was when Norvell Pell got his original thing and Shake Milton and all that. Okay. Kyle O'Quinn played the entire fourth. Okay. Well, then so then he played 24 minutes in 3 quarters, including almost all of the third for a second. Yeah. Okay. Well, here, looking at that. So I'm actually running a rotation now, which I did not even bother doing for that Dallas team. I threw up my hands at a certain point. Yeah, he's right. I have 28, so look at that, rotating on that one on a dime. I have him for 1 more minute than he does. But yes, now it's reasonable to expect him to give 27 or 28 minutes. I'm assuming in a difficult matchup, his points projection is pretty similar to mine. I have him around 21 and a half or 22 now. Let's see. 22.6.
Alex has him actually 17, so not that good, even with the minutes.
That's a low number. That's all right. See, that is just directly yanking his points per minute from this year. If you look, I'm guessing. I have no idea how his algorithm works or what's looking at there. Mike Scott is a career somewhere 0.8 to 0.9 fantasy producer for 5-6 years. This year, it is woefully small. It will not be that small in games in which he starts, etc. So I think it's probably a median point or something, but I would say it's closer to the low 20s than 16 or so. Like he's not, especially starting at the 4, the rebounds are there to a certain extent. So in my opinion, that's a little bit too small, but he should now play in the mid to high 20s a minutes. 30 seems unlikely, but barring a blowout, 25 does seem pretty safe based on the limited information and examples we have to look at. Certainly not someone you're drooling over. And in this matchup, probably the 4th option on offense. So he's meh. I'm thoroughly meh on it. He's really cheap. There is a ceiling there. There is a floor there. If you want to go back and look at the 2 previous Horford games out, for example, I'm pretty sure in one of them he was decent and one he was absolute garbage. In the game Horford was out and he played against the Cavs, again, he came off the bench in that one, which it's relevant that they were in an identical situation against a worse team, and they brought him off the bench as a reserve. His stock is obviously on the rise. He had that one really good game, and now he's starting over presumably Matisse Thybulle. I assume Furkan will get the the rest of the, I'm sorry, neither of them started at this point. One of those games he had 9 and 8 with no other stats in his 19 minutes. That was the Cavs game against the Knicks. Mike Scott played 22 minutes and had I was looking for points. I couldn't find them. It was because he didn't have any. 5 rebounds, 1 assist. That's it. So there is a very real floor there. And we have one example here of 22 minutes, 6 fantasy points. But, he's fine. It really comes down to an ownership question. I don't have a strong take or a great sense where the ownership is going to land. But I suspect it will end up being a little too high. I'm guessing it gets in the high teens, low 20s. That's probably a little too much for Mike Scott. He could get 30. He could get 13.
Also, we got another super chat here I've been trying to get to for DFS Marky. Thank you for the 690. Asking for your favorite 2 small forwards on FanDuel for a GPP. I think based on Alex's run on FanDuel, it looks to me like it'd be Rudy Gay, and I really don't even have a number 2. I think it's Gay by a decent margin. But Eddie, who would be your 2 small forwards on FanDuel?
I'm going to look at the ownership real quick, but it would be some combination. The 4 I don't mind playing are Jaylen Brown, who is a small forward on FanDuel, which is worth pointing out, and he's only 6,700. That price is particularly attractive to me. So I like Jaylen Brown. I'm just fine to get there. But again, it's not a great position or obviously a good matchup, so it's not super priority. If you're paying down, I do think without Drummond news, it's difficult to know how much time you get for Dorian Finney-Smith. There's like a 2 out of 3 chance you get 30 odd minutes out of him. That's pretty appealing at $4,300. I like Kevin Porter, who is $4,000. I do think he continues to get more time for a number of reasons, with eventually Love on the trade block and them just acclimating a little more to the fact that they're hot garbage and may as well develop some talent at some point. And there's just a lot going on there, but Kevin Porter would get on that list pretty well for me. Rudy Gay, I'm not sure starts. This is something we should talk about. I think Jakob Poeltl may start for the Spurs. I don't know if that lineup has been released yet.
It's not, but Alex also shared that worldview.
Did he?
Yep.
There's also some precedence for this. When a similar Spurs team played a similar Cavs team in March, I'm going with March. Poeltl got the start when he hadn't been starting that much, and Gay had been getting some start, and Gay came off the bench, and Jakob Poeltl started that game. And if memory serves, wasn't great. I'll see if I can get it. I recall him not playing much because I remember having this DFS conversation and saying, I think Poeltl may start this game. And he did. I think he was kind of ass. I'm gonna look it up. Not that terribly matters. It is not a good spot for him, and he's too expensive. I can't. I do think you will get him at 3% owned. That being said, I would have him projected for somewhere in the range of 22 minutes and 19 fantasy points, and for $5,100. That again does not make the old socks roll up and down. Maybe I can get this to download. Screw you.
Yeah. Poeltl, I would tend to think not going to have the same opportunity. I mean, people might look at that last game against Houston where there was no Aldridge out there. I do think that's one big thing that
Sure.
Having Aldridge back in the mix. I still like Poeltl if he were to pick up the start, and he projects pretty well for me. But I don't think he's like a slam dunk play. Whereas if Aldridge were out, I think he's a much different player when Aldridge is out in terms of his opportunity near the rim.
Yeah, of course. Talk
to me about more. Actually, we got one more super chat real fast. It's just an either or for Mr. Need That. Porzingis or Blake tonight? Do you have any thoughts on which of those guys you'd prefer?
It's pretty clearly for me Porzingis if Drummond is playing. If you don't have time to make that decision right now, site agnostic, price agnostic, I'm probably still gonna go with Kristaps right now. But that's an interesting situation because the ownership is obviously less divergent. And it has to do with how long before that game, if you can swap. The news about Drummond would have broken, so that's going to change whether or not Blake is 29 or 49% on. So there's a lot of moving pieces in that question, and I do think it's fairly close as a generality at the moment. I would end up more on Porzingis at the moment. I think this is the game. Let me see if I found it. Is this it? Yeah, there you go. Last year, White, Forbes, DeRozan, Aldridge, and Poeltl started against a Cavs team that started Love, Chatty, Sexton, Tristan Thompson, etc. So pretty similar game environment. Poeltl played 18 minutes and 43 seconds in what turned out to be a close game. The Spurs only won by 6. Everybody eventually went small. Gay played 27 and a half minutes off the bench in 18 minutes and 43 seconds. Against those guys, Jakob Poeltl had 4 points, 1 assist, 2 rebounds, 1 steal, and 3 blocks. So that sort of kind of barely got you there at the end with the 3 blocks, but that's not really something you can count on in 18 minutes and change. So I would have him for more minutes than that if he started. If he started, my number for him would probably be 26. Might be 24.
It's a
but
down pace spot. It doesn't seem like the ideal one for him to really tap into his upside, because you're just going to have less opportunity with less rebounds, less drives to the rim, all the things that he does best.
And a couple very good rebounders across the ball, and decent defenders, and it's just not a smash. I really like DeMar DeRozan. That needs to be said.
I agree.
In tournaments after DeMar DeRozan, the guard I'm going to play is Shante Murray, just because he won't be high enough owned, and there is an enormous score potentially there. He has looked bad for a while after looking world-beating for a while. I just don't think he'll be owned enough. He's expensive. There's a real chance. I have him at 26 minutes right now. There is a real chance that number is 20. There's some chance it gets higher. This is a coach that for years, again, the one stat I love to change is the last time they won a world title, the player with the most minutes per game on that team was Marco Bellinelli, and that number of minutes was 27 and change. This is a guy who's been spreading that crap around really deep for a while. So after you go past DeRozan and Aldridge, who feel fairly safe, assuming you take into account the fact they may just bludgeon the Cavs, as many people do. After that, you are sort of going crazy. But for me, DeJounte Murray is the first one of the sort of Spurs. The Spurs also rans that I want to fire bullets at in order would probably be DeJounte Murray, followed by Derek White, followed by Rudy Gay.
Yeah, Murray going to have...
Followed by Pirtle.
We're going to have pretty good usage in that second unit. We saw last game his minutes limit was lifted, did play over 30 minutes with overtime in that one. Still not starting, still going to be Derek White starting, most likely barring something weird. But I would not be shocked if that changed. I think DeJounte Murray takes that job back. I don't know when, but I think that's their long-term plan with the year going as sideways as it has been for a while now. I do think DeJounte Murray takes that job back sometime soon. But Bossbra asking, can you play DeJounte with DeMar DeRozan? I definitely am today, so I would say yes.
Yes, you can. It's a 4-game slate. Almost anything you ask, can I? The answer is gonna be yes. There's just not enough other combinations out there. Whenever it comes to uncomfortable minute stacking, you're gonna just sort of have to suck it up and deal on a slate this big. I don't think it's better for either one. I think DeJounte is a little better without DeRozan. And I think DeRozan is a little better without DeJounte, but they're still very much playable next to each other.
Yeah, terrible defense across from them, which I think is what matters the most.
Yes.
Cavs on the other side, anybody you'd want there? Because to me, the San Antonio side in particular is the most appealing. And this game overall, I mean, it is now tied for the highest combined total, but I think people may be sleeping on it out of fear it's a blowout. Ownership hasn't really matriculated a ton other than a few guys like Kevin Porter Jr. apparently is going to be chalk on DraftKings. Which Cleveland guys do you want the most?
When you said chalk on DraftKings, what's that number? Somehow my ownership disappeared on me.
That number is 30% right now, 31% actually.
Okay, that's too much then. I would have said, presuming ownership was agnostic, I'd have gone there. I don't mind Kevin Love. That is still a very, very underpriced Kevin Love tag. I don't mind Tristan Thompson, who can bang out a good game once in a while. And this is, by the way, also, there are only, I think, 3 teams on back-to-backs here. And this is the other one. It's Boston, Philly, and Cleveland. So we get the back-to-backs out of the way early in the night. They obviously keeping it fairly close against the Rockets last night. But no one got super taxed in that game. So for Cleveland, let me see if anything changes with news. Yeah, I probably... I'm most interested in Love or Thompson. $6K for those guys is still a little too cheap. I think they're going undersold looking at ownership. So I would go Love, Thompson, and then you're into the mess of Porter. I'd probably then go Porter, Clarkson, Sexton. Again, at their prices, it's going to change a little bit site to site, but really difficult to love anyone. But I do have 27 minutes for KPJ. I think they continue to, I don't know about feature him, but give him significant time. And again, another game to keep an eye on for late swaps. Let me see if I have any other relevant notes I want to bang out, because we are really coming down to it here.
I feel like Denver may be worth touching on a little bit.
Yeah, as we've said, basically zero there outside of Jokic. I'm going to like Jamal Murray. If you ensure that he's in, he will be under-owned. Just people look to get him, and the matchup for him is very good. And 6,500, for example, on DK is a very tolerable price. And the closer to lock you get, the more under-owned he will be. But on a 4-game slate, you're scraping for any kind of ownership any sort of advantage rather you can pick up. So if Jamal Murray is in and starting, I would swap to a significant amount. I'm guessing I would end up playing 25 or 30%, which would be well more than the field. It's not a bad matchup whatsoever. Hasn't been great against the Trailblazers in the past. And again, we have playoff series to look at here. So originally not a spot I'm super excited about, but a 4-game slate, I would have wanted some anyway. And the injury concerns would lower his ownership where it would be advantageous. Same thing with Paul Millsap. Not a lot of people are going to go there whatsoever because of what's going on. Similar situation with Christian Wood. You can play Jeremy Grant right now. He's going to play plenty anyway. Just another situation where this guy was going to play anyway and projects to certainly some chance he was going to have a good game anyway. Now there's a chance he starts and gets 10 more minutes than we expected. And so I would try to have a significant amount of Jeremy Grant. Frequently when we talk about Grant, I want to say there's, always you can take a chance on Plumlee, who always gets that backup center run and sometimes gets, if there's blowout run, he ends up playing the fourth and there's all that jazz going on. So obviously, first of all, Monty Morris, if Jamal Murray is out. As far as Mason Plumlee goes, I don't think this is a situation in the event Millsap doesn't play where you get any Plumlee next to Jokic lineups. The various guys who are going to get out there at the 4 for the Trailblazers aren't guys you really want Mason Plumlee guarding. You don't want Plumlee guarding Carmelo Anthony. You'd rather have Jeremy Grant do that. You'd rather have Paul Millsap do that. You don't want him guarding Mario Hezonja if he's out there. You'd rather have Jeremy Grant doing that. So I do not think, to answer a couple people who asked that question, that this is a spot where you maybe get the double big Denver lineup. Looking at Portland real quick, Damian Lillard is still too cheap. He's owned about where he should be. I'm fine with that. Whiteside, I slightly like less than Jokic, but I think he's an absolutely fine option. Sorry, I can't generate a hot take there. I would end up over the board on Anthony Simmons. He's been getting some of that extra time sans Rodney Hood. And there's blowout potential, and there's all kinds of good stuff there. So $3,900 Anthony Simmons at the start of the day was another guy I was going to bring up as a perfectly sexy pivot to Brad Wanamaker.
All right, so we got about seconds left till lock. One quick either or here for a game that's not starting at lock. Sure. We will do a quick round of Daddy Likes for our one game. Bruce Brown or Langston Galloway for J23 in the premium Slack?
Right now, I would play Langston Galloway. It's very close.
Well, this one's not going to be relevant anymore, but Simmons and McCollum or Kemba and DeMar DeRozan on FanDuel at shooting guard?
That's tough for me. I would play Kemba and DeMar.
Yeah,
Simmons, another guy we didn't specifically talk about. He is still a little too cheap, especially on DraftKings. Even on FanDuel, his defense and by extension his defensive production this year, as far as his ability to pick up a giant pile of steals, has been pretty nice. I do like the net change for him with Horford out, how it affects the pace and the rest of the game. So, and again, another shout out for people who, on occasion, complain about things that get missed on the show. There is a reason I do go through and manually rank every player. It's to cover the guys that I didn't discuss and Simmons a good to very good play.
All right, just catching up with the YouTube chat.
Did we lock? I think we locked.
Oh no, it's just some guy lying about news. Please don't lie about news in the chat. That's not cool.
The scummiest. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, no, don't.
Don't be that
Andre
guy.
Drummond has not been confirmed anywhere yet, so don't report stuff that's fake in the chat. It's just not cool. There's no reason. But this is a community, for better or worse, and we do try to make sure that people aren't being dicks for no reason, and that is a dick move. So bye, Anthony. Have a good run. Let's pull up ownership here for a quick round of Daddy Likes, because we got some NFL coming up momentarily, and Uncle Spags is making a couple lineups for that. All right, Eddie, we got a couple guys here who were pretty highly owned in the first game. I guess maybe not that highly owned, adjusting for the 4-game slate. But give me your guess as to who is number one. I gave you no giveaways at all with this lead-in.
And nicely done. And I screwed up again. I did not look at our ownership after like 7:15. And I know this is coming. So if I wanted to look less bad, because last time I was bad, I missed some numbers pretty big. I should eyeball our DraftKings ownership and try to memorize it, or at least commit it somewhat to memory.
Write
and
it
then
on the back of your hand and then
it's
look
hard
at
to,
it.
yeah, no, exactly. Run that Donald Trump style with mention no collusion. Throw it right on there or something. That'll work great. Instead, I'm just free firing it here. We have just Celtics 76ers, right?
Correct.
Who's the highest owned player?
Yep.
That's going to be really close. Am I right that it's...
It is a 6% point spread between him and number 2. And I gave it away. It's a him. It's not a she. It is not Cheryl Miller coming back.
Not Lisa Leslie. Okay. So it's got to be Embiid, Simmons, or Wanamaker. Am I right that one of those 3 players is the top one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's still no Drummond news. I think it's Embiid. I'm gonna go with Joel.
It is Embiid. What is his percentage?
I think higher than we had him projected at. What did we have him projected at? I'm queuing it in here because I remember thinking it would be bigger than that.
We had definitely not what it's actually at. Actually, no, we're pretty close. 30% is what we had him at.
Okay, I'll say 35.
Damn, I just lost it. Yep, 34.2. So there you go. So that is right there. And you guessed the top 3 correctly. Do you want to guess who number 2 is out of the guys that you named?
Wanamaker if Simmons was that, if Embiid was that high.
It is young Bradley. And what is his percentage?
30. Well, you said 6% less, so 28 point. You said it was 6% less, so you said Embiid was 34 in some, so 28 in some.
Yep, 28.4 for Brad Wanamaker and Ben Simmons bringing it rounding out the top 3 with what, Eddie? I didn't give you this one.
26.
28.2. So he is right behind Brad.
They're right tied there, yeah.
And then I'll just run through these. Tell me if any of them.
Where did Mike Scott end up? I'm curious. I think I said I guess that he would get to the high teens. And that I think
10% for Michael Scott.
I just heard teen, but okay, so he's and again
19.
Good time to tweet at me the office basketball clips there. I'm trying to think if there's anyone else I'm curious about where they got.
Out of all the shows I wouldn't mind a reboot on, I'd prefer to see Steve Carell on that instead of the morning show where he is committing sexual assault or whatever he's doing on that on Apple TV. Not a fan of that. Go back and do comedy, Steve Carell. But let's round these out. So Tobias Harris going to be at 22%, Jaylen Brown at 21%. Then comes the aforementioned Mike Scott, 19%, 18% for Kemba Walker, lower version of 18% for Jason Tatum, an even lower version, 13% for Daniel Tice, my bad. 8% for Thibault. Hayward coming in at 7%, so people are already jumping off that train.
That's I mean, he's 6K on the nose. Like I did slightly like him least, but at those ownership levels, I like Jaylen Brown was my favorite of the 4 of them. Hayward was my least favorite, but 21% versus 7% probably actually barely tilts it the other way. Like it was that close for me. I don't have a strong take there.
Yeah, I think Hayward's versatility in this kind of game. He is a Swiss Army knife. I feel like that's sort of is an asset for him as a playmaker, getting some extra rebounds. I would want more than a third of him relative to Jaylen Brown. Yeah. Kylo Quinn at 3%, so people going there. Ennis 2%, Cantor 1.4%, Al Horford 0.8%. Eddie, what did those people do?
They played themselves.
They did indeed. They played themselves big time. Shout out to Fantasy Draft. Fantasy Draft, of course, the official home of Rake Free DFS. Go check them out right now and use that promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, for your free 7-day trial and your entry into the world of Rake Free DFS, in which all of the contest entry fees are paid to the winners. And check out the Hooters main event for the NFL's Week 15. It is the largest Rake Free tournament you will find in the DFS industry for this week. So go check them out right now at fantasydraft.com. And Eddie, anything you want to hit on before we call it quits?
No, it's what is it, Thursday? I have them off tomorrow, which is good because you Friday people were animals.
It gets a little rambunctious on Fridays and a little bit, depends on the day.
Get a little bit of that hard cider in them. These boys get that. Careful, these boys get that syrup in them.
Yeah. People are just pounding the lean at home and not chilling out and getting angry for some reason. But Friday it'll be me and the Chubster. I think tomorrow though. There was some things moving around because Josh might be doing the deeper dive, but we'll see. I'll be here. I know that. And I'll be here with some eggnog. So come back then.
I have an announcement. Christmas. It's just me and you. Just not me and you. Me and you. I was saying that to like the camera. I was trying to develop a bond.
Is this how I'm fighting?
You're like, wait, what? I plan on being drunk on eggnog and cognac. No. So yeah, I'm gonna do a Christmas time. So everyone
Okay.
will have gifts, and there might be caroling, and so I'm gonna do a Christmas with you fine people. I'm looking forward to it. We'll start a tradition.
Bring the mistletoe right over your computer screen while you're watching that, and make Laddie give you a big sloppy kiss, the kind that you get from an unwanted coworker advance at a holiday party. That's what we're going for here. We appreciate all you guys. Hit that like button before you go. Tune in tomorrow for Live Before Lock. Watch Fast City Fear with EMAC all weekend long, doing the Live Before Lock shows for NBA. And we'll see you guys again soon. So enjoy your nights. Good luck.